I have a tendency to be somewhat standoffish when I see the term Lovecraftian attached to a film or book or game, especially if that film, book or game is getting praised for being Lovecraftian. Yeah, I'm quite a cynic. Anyway, recently I saw the term Lovecraftian over and over again attached to the manga artist Junji Ito, even by some of you in the comment section. Manga, for some of you who don't know, are basically Japanese comic books that can range from the cheery, friendly stuff aimed for kids to the seriously gory stuff with complex themes for adults. Also, normally for manga, you start reading from what a Westerner would call the back of the book and you read from right to left, top to bottom. So I decided to pick up some manga by Junji Ito. I started with a copy called Fragments of Horror, an anthology of very weird short stories, all horror focused. It impressed me enough to immediately buy 2 of Junji Ito's works, Gyo and Uzumaki, and holy shit, Uzumaki is impressive. Damn impressive. The story is set in a quaint little Japanese town called Kurozucho, located between the seaside and some forested hills. Quite picturesque if you know your Japanese horror and cinema, where all these little stories take place. The main characters are a young high school couple, Kirie Goshima and Shuichi Saito, and most of the plot revolves around what happens to the people in their lives, such as their friends, parents, classmates, and so on. Kirie is more like the normal person and seems to be in the position of the reader, in that from the get-go she has no idea that anything is wrong with the town, while her boyfriend Shuichi seems to know from the beginning that the town has something very fucked up about it. And what exactly is wrong with the town? Spirals, man. Goddamn spirals. No tentacle abominations, no colors out of space, just spirals. Not even magical spirals, mind you. Rather, just spirals that you see in everyday life. For example, in food, in the clouds, even in your fingerprints, or the shell of a snail, stuff like that. But it's human interaction with these ordinary spirals which seems to completely fuck people up, both mentally and physically. It's as if people become obsessed with the spirals that they see in everyday life. Either obsessed or they become terrified. Whatever their reaction, it's not good for anyone. As the story goes on, it just gets worse and worse for the townsfolk, as the apparent spiral curse affects their lives more and more, and they seem to be utterly helpless against it. Kirie and Shuichi eventually decide to get to the bottom of the spiral curse and escape the town, but will the curse of the spiral let them go? In total there are 19 chapters, and each chapter sort of seems to be semi-autonomous from each other while still making up one narrative. In other words, each one chapter focuses on one case example of how spirals have fucked up the citizens of Kurozucho, but it is all presented in chronological order. In addition to this, the edition of the book I bought has a lost chapter in it, which seems to be basically just a chapter of Uzumaki that didn't make it into the final printing of the book. There is also an afterword manga of a few pages about Junji Ito himself and his quest to find the secrets of the spirals, which is a lot more humorous and light-hearted than the actual story. It's worth noting that while Junji Ito was making the story Uzumaki, he actually did do some of the things that were presented in this afterword, such as eating foods with spirals in them, drawing spirals in artwork, and that sort of thing. I mentioned that some of the townsfolk suffer mental and physical degradation. The mental issue, I'm sure you can guess by now, considering this is a Lovecraft channel. Madness, right? And yeah, there's bucketfuls of that Lovecraftian trope, but what about physically? This is where things get pretty bizarre and absurd. Things happen to the human characters stricken by the spiral curse which are physically impossible. It is as if they get mutated or altered by the spirals, sometimes in ways that kill them, and sometimes just superficial alterations to their body, which cause no actual harm. I'll give a mild example from the first chapter, so as not to spoil later chapters for you. Shuichi's father gets obsessed with the spirals to the point where he decides he can make them on his own, with his body. So when he confronts Kirie, he sticks out his tongue to demonstrate his ability to make spirals, and his tongue is impossibly long and curled in a way that is impossible for a human to do. By the time you get a few more chapters into the story, you will see some of the most bizarre shit you will have ever seen in a manga. It's just amazing. Wikipedia has a great summary of this sort of horror that I'm talking about. Some of the recurring themes of Ito's works include body horror, seemingly ordinary characters who begin to act out of irrational compulsion, the breakdown of society, deep-sea organisms, and the inevitability of one's demise. Ito's universe is also very cruel and capricious. His characters often find themselves victims of malevolent, unnatural circumstances for no discernible reason, or punished out of proportion for minor infractions against an unknown and incomprehensible natural order. That is pretty fucking Lovecraftian, don't you agree? It's not just humans that get affected by the spirals in Uzumaki. Aspects of nature like trees, clouds, rivers, and so on show spirals in them soon enough. Because of this, it shows that it's not just humanity that has been affected by the spiral curse, but rather everything. Nature and reality itself is being affected, which adds a level of ominous malevolence to the town. But it makes one realize that if just one town can have its reality warped in such a way, surely other places can be affected too, if not the whole planet. The extent and the danger of the spiral curse shows it has no limits, and the mind wanders to horrific conclusions. Hell, even the wind shows spirals. This is one of the little things I found quite funny in the manga, and there's not really much to laugh about in the manga, but this was funny. Every now and then, this tiny little tornado about the size of a person shows up in the story. Tornadoes are obviously a type of spiral, so it's quite fitting. But it's funny to me because the characters are just so calm about it. They've seen so much shit that it doesn't even seem to bother them that this little tornado just goes around the streets of the city. It's very strange, but it made me laugh. The tone and atmosphere of the book is quite unnerving. This town, Kurozucho, is not a place you want to be. While on the surface it does appear to be completely normal, as you can continue reading, you'll realize just how dangerous it is to live there, and frankly, eventually it starts to feel as threatening as a city like Silent Hill or Raccoon City. I'm not joking. The spiral curse seems to affect people at random and without logic, so you face as much chance of personal destruction as anyone else in that city. Hell, to be honest, Innsmouth looks practically like a holiday resort compared to this town. The ending of Uzumaki I won't spoil, but it is a heavy one. It's one that is somewhat unexpected, but it does justice to the build-up that we had in the previous chapters. Junji Ito's artwork is pretty great and original in that you can immediately tell that it was him that drew the pictures that you're looking at, just like how you can easily spot Akira Toriyama's work or Hayao Miyazaki's work. Each panel in the manga is well drawn out, and there doesn't seem to be any parts where he got lazy and half-assed it. One aspect that I especially liked was his tendency to make these elaborate, gory pictures, but on the page before showing you the image, he leads up to it, usually by having the main character look completely shocked at what they're looking at, but you can't see what they're looking at until you turn the page. When you see that little panel of the shocked faces of the characters, you know you're going to see some bizarrely fucked up shit the next time you turn the page, and it actually becomes really exciting to turn the page. You look forward to doing it, and that I really liked about the book. So, is it Lovecraftian? Big question. Yes, no doubt. But it also has bizarre, absurdist elements and also some J-horror elements that you won't find in your standard Lovecraft story. Anyway, I think it would be insulting to Junji Ito to just call him Lovecraftian or J-horror style. Because after reading fragments of Horror, Gyo, and Uzumaki, I can say that he has a style all of his own. But is it Lovecraftian enough? Yes it is. It's Lovecraftian enough that I can justify putting some hours into making this video and putting it onto my channel for people who are interested into Lovecraft. So, if you're into Lovecraft and appreciate cosmicism and powers beyond understanding which seem neither malevolent nor benevolent, but fucking with humans in surreal and horrific ways nonetheless, this is definitely worth getting. Even if you don't like manga and anime, then I would urge you to make an exception in this case. I should also mention that there is a live action movie of the story, also called Uzumaki. It's a typical J-horror type film, not outstanding, but definitely not bad. Having watched the film, I can say that the manga is still the best way to digest the story of Uzumaki, because the graphic illustrations in the manga are just way above anything that is shown in the film. Anyway, that's all I have to really say about the story. It's fun making a book review again. considering I have a Lovecraft channel and I don't really do any book reviews, it's kind of ironic, right? In the description of this video, you'll find a link where you can buy Uzumaki quite cheaply. I really think you should pick it up if you're into Lovecraft. It's something fresh, something new, and very Lovecraftian. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers.